What's going on, everybody? This is Jose Betancourt, and as always, thank you for viewing my videos. So here I have the Fuji GFX 50S Mark II, and I had stated that I was thinking about picking up the 35 to 70 lens, which is a zoom lens and very portable and very light, and I wanted it to replace my 45 millimeter f2.8. Now, the dilemma I had was to either get rid of it or keep it and stick with my 50R, which the GFX 50R, and I eventually replaced the Fuji GFX 50R with the 50S Mark II. Now, there are several reasons why I did it. Number one, I have a brain injury. It's been 2 years, and I have side effects, obviously, from this brain injury. Sometimes I get tremors on my right hand, and I found that using the 50R for certain things was becoming difficult, especially holding the 110, the GF 110. By the way, I also bought the Fuji GF 80mm f1.7. It's everything everybody's been talking about. It is amazing. Now, I haven't had a lot of time with this equipment. I've been trying to use the 35 to 70 as much as possible to see if I like it, plain and simple. I found that at 70 millimeter, it is extremely soft when focusing at close range. One of the things that I wanted, why I wanted this lens, is because they said it had pretty close range for focusing. And I'll tell you what, at 35 millimeters is extremely sharp. At everything from, let me see if I can unsnap this, 35, 45, 63, but 70, it is really tricky. 70 millimeters is really tricky. I did take a few pictures, and there are, nothing special, but I was trying to showcase how at about 7.1 to f8, 70 millimeters is perfectly fine. Whereas the other focal lengths, you leave them as is, and the camera is going to adjust the f-stop because this doesn't have an aperture ring, so it will automatically adjust according to the focal range. If you leave, because this is a 5.4 to 5.6, if you leave 70 millimeters at 5.6, the closer you get to a subject, you're playing with a 50-50 chance of success, and that really bugged me. I should have taken a picture. I should have done that. Maybe I'll do that after this, where something at its closest focal length just looks horrible. There's a halo effect. It doesn't look blurry. It just looks extremely soft. That's the only thing I can say. As if somebody put a filter to make it look like fashionably soft or something weird. Other than that, the lens is good. It is good. It's going to be my walk around lens, and also when I do product photography, the 80mm 1.7 is a little mini 110 f2, which, by the way, I said the GF 110 f2 was untouchable. Unfortunately, I also sold that one in order to get the 80 millimeter. So the key features of this 50S Mark II, obviously, is the bigger handle, which will provide me a more steady experience as far as handling. The screen is more articulated. As a matter of fact, here's a funny story. I was taking photos of flag football. It was a bunch of kids, and as a favor, I took photos, team photos, but then I took some action shots as well. Believe it or not, with the 50 R, the GFX 50R, and I was taking solo shots, right? Portrait shots of some of the kids who wanted their own portraits taken solo. And one little kid had to be about 7 years old. He was like on one knee with the football in his hand. And I like to take photos where the individual I'm taking photos of looks a little taller than they do in real life. So I got down real low. And unfortunately, the GFX 50R, the rear view screen doesn't pop out like this one. So I had to go real low, and I almost caught a cramp in my hamstring in front of everybody. And so I had to quickly adjust. Now, listen, because I was hit in the frontal lobe, I have balance issues. So the fact that I was able to somehow adjust my leg and keep my balance, granted I was on one knee, that was impressive. And so I took the photo, and then I got up really quick, stretched, and I told my wife, what happened. And that was the day I really started to feel like the GFX 50R was giving me issues. I was back here on the Fuji GFX 50R. You have an extra button, and that was where I would put my film simulations. And I was able to program the film simulations with different adjustments. I named them and everything. I was finding that, and sometimes those film simulations would have auto ISO. So when I would look down, somehow I was tapping the button that was back here and changing all of my settings. And so my ISO would be all wonky, the film simulation would be off. But every time, like I'd say about 70% of the time I would look down, I would accidentally hit the button. So now I have this button up here programmed for my film simulations. It's out of the way, and it's close to the shutter. So when I'm looking through the viewfinder, I can easily change it. And then you have these program, you have a dial right here for different programs. I did one, I believe this one is also, I shoot in manual, so I really don't depend on anything. Sometimes I do auto ISO, and then I get finicky and I change it to manual as well, because I want full control. The one thing is, since this lens, the GF 35-70, doesn't have an aperture ring, you have to double tap this front dial. So you would have ISO, then you tap it down, and you would change your aperture as well. This body reminds me of the XH1, which I bought when it launched. So I'm very familiar with it. The only thing is, this joystick is really tactile, and I'm not used to it. I'm accustomed to that little tiny joystick that was on the GFX 50R. So you have the articulated screen, you have the bigger handle with, extra buttons for programming that won't get in the way of some of my more vital settings. And then you have a dedicated movie switch. Believe it or not, I do record video on my GFX. I did it with the GFX 50R. Then you have in-body stabilization. But under certain circumstances, excuse me, my hand would just start shaking. It happens when I play video games. If I'm in an intense situation within the video game, my hand would start shaking along with the controller. So it's really annoying. The in-body stabilization really helps me, and that's as plainly as I can put it. It's extremely helpful. This camera is pretty light. This lens is pretty light. The GFX 50R is cumbersome. It's wider than this. It's a little longer. And the shutter is up here. And if you want to use, like I tried back focusing with the GFX 50R when I was shooting the flag football game. And it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't, it was 3 hours of standing, and, I get mental fatigue. I get dizzy, stuff like that. So part of my therapy is to get back into photography, obviously, in order to exercise my mind and keep busy. Right now I'm on disability, so I'm not working. I could be on disability for forever, until I expire. But the fact is I need to remain busy, and I need to get into the hobby that I truly enjoy. So it was a tough choice. It was a tough choice going from the 50R because, in my opinion, number one, it was the first GFX that I owned. It has character. It looks like a brick, but there's some character to that camera, and I'm gonna miss using it. But so far, this the build, the finish, autofocus is a little snappier than the 50R, but it's the same sensor. You have a different processor, and you get some extra film simulation, and you can also use it when recording video. So it seems like a worthy upgrade, because it is an upgrade. This is an upgrade from the 50R as far as the body and ergonomics. Same sensor, so I'm going to get the same images. That doesn't change. I have a smaller 180 now than the super spectacular 110. And I haven't really used this 80 yet because I've only had this for a few days, but I've taken test shots, and that 1.7, when you open it up all the way, holy cow. When you take a photo at 1.7, wow, that background just becomes invisible. It's really, really shallow. So yeah, that's my reasoning for picking up the Fuji GFX 50S Mark II. I sold my my GFX 50R, my 45 millimeter, my 110, and some of you may say I downgraded. I'll tell you what, when I first started taking photos with this 35 to 70, I was kind of regretting it, because getting rid of that 45, because the 45 millimeter is really, really, it's a really, really great lens. It's really sharp. So I haven't been able to go outside, take photos outside, and that's where the test is really going to come in. I'm going to put a few photos as I'm talking. One video that I took just, to demonstrate, until I go outside and I have some real legitimate time, hands-on experience with this camera. I won't give a review. I won't say whether this is better or not than the 50R. And I won't say whether these lenses are better than the two previous lenses that I got rid of. I need way more time to, with this gear. But I wanted to give my, initial impressions and the reasons why I got rid of it. My 50R and my other two lenses. But anyway, it's initial impressions. It's a very solidly built camera. The handle is great, very comfortable. This top display, I had the XH1, so I am accustomed to having that display, and it does come in handy. It does come in handy. So you guys let me know in the comment section if you own the 50S Mark II and any of these two lenses. And as always, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.